Hey everybody. Okay, so first of all, I want to say I survived residency too. Um, it was quite the challenge that I did not expect, so I will get into that. But first, the title of this video. Congratulations to myself. I've almost hit the max in my student loans of six figures. Yay! Congratulations for me for taking 2 years at a private school during undergrad. It's not for not having grants and scholarships, but seeing as how that I can't spend my entire life writing essays to get scholarships, at least I paid on my student loans when I wasn't in school in between my undergrad and my master's. Not everybody can do that. And I definitely am not gonna try and go into default, but right now, while I'm still in school, my loans are in forbearance. So I talked to some of the other people that were actually in my school, and some of them are at like $250,000 in debt. Not really sure how that happens unless you have a double major in your undergrad or this is your second master's maybe. But the cap, I believe, for your student loans is like $138,000. So I'm like 20,000 away from that. And I'm not freaking stressing about it. You know why? Because I have an end goal, and my end goal is to get my PSYD, make that six figures, and pay on my student loans and be debt free, because right now that's like the only debt that I have minus my little car payment. So I'm not like too stressed out. You'll learn if this is a video for you and you haven't even started your master's, is that the amount of money that you get in your undergrad that's available for like Pell Grants, scholarships, grants, anything like that would actually pay for your college and you don't have to pay it back, those become very limited when you're in your master's and definitely not in your doctorate. That's why it's so imperative to make sure that your grades when you're in your undergrad and in your master's are really high so that you're competing against other people if you are trying to get your doctorate. A lot of schools will actually pay for your doctorate through grants. The reason why is because they get grant money for research, and typically when you're getting your doctorate, whether it be your PSYD or your PhD, they want people to actually do research. So when you actually step into these schools and you are going to do the research for them, then that helps them, which then helps you pay for your college. So it's kind of like a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type of scenario. So that's why I'm not too stressed about it, but I did get my email from financial aid yesterday, or at least that's when I checked it. But yeah, so tis life. It is what it is. And most people in America that have education have debt. It's not very common that everybody can just pay for their student loans. So if anybody wants to comment and be like, I paid for all mine, everything's paid for mine. Okay, well, okay. Round of applause for you, boo. Good for you. So anyways, moving forward, residency 2. So if you followed any of my videos, and first of all, thank you for the new people that have subscribed. My little channel is just slowly growing, still growing, but slowly. It's okay. I appreciate you all. So last year I did residency 1. What that means for any of the new people that are watching this video is that I take classes online, and then once a year I fly out to Chicago for about a week and I participate in what's called residency. Residency is kind of like an intensive, emotionally driven, physically exhausting experience where you are having that interaction hands-on with not only community through service learning projects, but with your peers and the faculty. Since it is online, having that dynamic of being person to person is really important in order to use the skills that you're learning. So what it does is it helps you just basically take what you're learning contextually and implement it into real life situations. So for Residency 1, just to give a quick synopsis for anybody that has not watched my Residency 1 video, it was essentially you're just learning the basics of showing empathy, reflection of feeling, meaning, doing the suicidal assessments, diving deeper into the process and accepting that you are into this field and that you have to succumb to the process. You really have to embrace it and embody what it means to become a therapist and really make it like, if it's not your passion, trust me, you're going to find out quickly. You're going to be like, this is not for me. Like, if you're not a people person as far as helping others, this is not the field for you. Like, I'm not a people person per se. Like, I'm not a social butterfly, but helping people just seems to be innate in my personality. It's not even always something that I am seeking to do. It's like people, even at work, seek me out and I'm like, okay. And then they just like start bursting into tears and they're like, I don't even know why I opened up to you. And it's like all about being a great listener. Sometimes you don't really have to say anything. Like, people just want to be heard. So moving forward, Residency 2. Residency 2 focuses on, as opposed to Residency 1, where it focused on you learning your skills for individual therapy, Residency 2 focuses on group therapy. So group therapy would be process groups, support groups, family therapy, anything like that would be considered group therapy. So for ours, we did group therapy, and I hate to say this, but I really didn't feel like it was like the best form of group therapy because we did a lot of processing groups. And what processing groups are is like you have a main issue and then you reflect and you process the issue that you're having within the group. And then the group as a whole contributes to the processing of an issue. So for ours, for example, we had to do everything starting with icebreakers. So icebreakers are basically ways to get clients loose in the beginning of therapy because, let's face it, therapy is very stressful. It's nerve-wracking. You don't know what's going to happen. You're not really sure about what to do, what to say, what to do with your body. Like, you're just kind of like tensed up. So an icebreaker in the beginning of a group therapy is really great. It gets people to kind of loosen up. Some of the icebreakers that we did were kind of like, tell us 2 truths and a lie. And then the group, everybody in the group had to kind of like say, okay, I think this is the lie versus this is the truth. Or there were people that did ones where it was like, tell us a favorite time in your life when you were the happiest. And, or another icebreaker was one person had to say an emotion and then the person beside them had to act out the motion, and it kind of went in around the circle like that. It's just a way to get people to like loosen up. Like, sometimes you might do quick breathing exercises or just like quick yoga stretches, something to get the blood flowing and the mind not so focused on the therapy because it helps you to open up. So with that being said, when you're a counselor, you have to know people's boundaries and you have to respect them. So for one of the instances that I had, one of the groups, because you had 2 people per group. So basically what that means is like there was the facilitator and the co-facilitator, like you were leading the group sessions together. And so there were people that would open up the session, and then there were people that would kind of like round out the session and, say these are the themes of the group and kind of check in with people and see how they're feeling. So there was one group where this girl decided to take like a hula hoop. I don't know if you guys have seen this icebreaker before. I was totally unfamiliar with it. But first of all, I have severe boundary issues. Like, I don't like to be touched. I don't like to have my personal space invaded on any level. Like, I'm not a hand holder. I'm not a hugger. Like, I'm just not a touchy-feely person, especially with people I don't know. Like, it gets my body temperature extremely hot. I don't like it. And so this individual knew that that was one of my boundaries, and everybody in the group knew it was my boundaries because they're like, oh, Camille does not like to be touched. She doesn't like hugs. She doesn't like any of this. So this girl decides to do a icebreaker. And I'm only bringing this up because it's really important that when you're running a group that you're aware of people's boundaries and you respect people's boundaries. So her thing was everybody had to hold hands, and then they had a hula hoop that they would try and move from each person's body to the next body without breaking hands. And like literally people were like this close to each other, like bending on top of each other. Like it was just way too much. So I was just like, I don't want to do this. And I stepped back. I was like, I don't want to do this because this is out of my comfort zone and I feel extremely uncomfortable and I'm well within my right. I have my own personal boundaries for my being and, you know, they need to be respected. Well, this individual gave me a dirty look and I'm like, wow, you're going to be a therapist. So I'm like, whatever, I'm not doing it. And then people in the group were like, yeah, I kind of felt uncomfortable. One girl even said that in her culture that, you know, anybody that close to you, it's like, okay, do you want to fight? Because getting so close to somebody, like you have to consider the cultural aspect of being in other people's spaces. Like some people's cultures, they don't mind being in other people's spaces. Like for them, that's just comfort. But for my culture or just me as an individual, no, not in my personal space. Like not at all. Like I don't like it. Like I just don't like it. And so, you know, after the icebreaker happened and the people were like, well, how did you feel that Camille didn't participate in the icebreaker? And like, some people were like, well, I kind of felt like, did she not want to hold my hand? Or like, was it something about me? And I'm like, why is it my boundaries are being questioned and you feel like it's based on you? Like I've had these boundaries before I even knew any of you people. And so the facilitator and the co-facilitator, I think did a really horrible job at checking in and sincerely checking in and making sure that it wasn't a matter of something was going on with me. Like the girl was like, oh, are you okay? Like, why wouldn't I be okay? Just because I didn't want to do your stupid icebreaker doesn't mean I'm not okay. It's just the fact that you're not respecting the fact that these were my boundaries. So later that day at the hotel, because mind you, our residency goes from 7 a.m. to around 6:30 p.m. It is very extensive. It's like longer than a normal work day. And so we get back to the hotel, and this is an individual that I used to be friends with. I'm no longer friends with this person after this situation because like they were just completely out of line, and they need to learn that when you step over people's boundaries and you don't respect them, that you can't just bounce back from that. Like you can't. Especially being completely disrespected. So this girl, she texts me and she's like, oh, can I talk to you? So I'm like, okay, like not even thinking anything of it because the whole day had gone by and we were supposed to all go out to dinner. But she's like, oh, I don't want to go because like my girlfriend's here and blah, blah, blah. So I was just thinking like, oh, okay, whatever. Like people are tired. I wasn't even attributing this to the stupid icebreaker. Like it's a freaking icebreaker. Like give me a break. And so she's like, I was really angry that you didn't do the icebreaker. Are you for real right now? You're really mad that I didn't do a stupid icebreaker. And she was like, so I had to reflect on why I was so angry. And I just came to the conclusion that I feel like you're really negative in this experience and that obviously there's something going on with you. What the fuck? An icebreaker. I'm like, correction, no. I just don't like to be touched, and you knew that, and you don't respect my boundaries. Now, this is the person that kept trying to give me a hug the entire time since I showed up. And everybody was like, stop trying to hug Camille. She doesn't like hugs. She doesn't like to be touched. Yet she kept doing it. And so I was like, no, first of all, you're completely unprofessional because when you do group therapy, you have to first start with what the group rules are. So one of the group rules were if there's an issue with what happened in group, you need to keep it in the group and you need to process what it is that the problem is in group. Do not take anything outside of the group and discuss it independently. And that was a rule that was broken by this individual. extremely unprofessional because I said, well, first of all, you don't respect boundaries, which is a horrible attribute to have for a counselor, because if you were a counselor, then you would contact the client hours later. Like, I mean, hours. This happened at 10 o'clock in the morning, and this chick was like 11 o'clock at night, like, oh, can I talk to you about this? So would you text or call the client or show up at their house like, nah. You know, that icebreaker that I didn't respect your boundaries on? I'm like kind of pissed off about that. And so I was just like, you're ridiculous. Like, I'm not going to apologize for it. You're completely unprofessional. Don't ever contact me or a client about why they didn't do something in a group. Instead of actually going, wow, this person has boundaries. I wonder, maybe I can inquire as to why they have boundaries. Is there something that happened in their past that has set these boundaries? Like, there was no genuineness. So what I did, because this person was unprofessional and broke the group rules, is I went to the professor and told her, and then we processed it in group. Well, of course, this person didn't want to own up to their making a nasty look or confronting me the way that they did. They try to act like I'm just so positive. Like, girl, if you don't get all the way out of here with those lies. So the reason why I'm telling you guys this story, it is so important when you have your residencies to consider the fact that you must be professional at all times. Just because you have a friendship with somebody, a bond with somebody, know them from your past, maybe even they're a relative through marriage or anything like that, you must keep your professionalism. This is the number one reason why it is against the code of ethics to counsel your family, friends, relatives, lovers, boyfriends, girlfriends, anything like that, because when you're crossing these lines, people take liberties that they really wouldn't with other clients. Like, this individual felt like she could confront me outside of group about something that happened in group because we had past tense, a friendship. And so that just needs to be a lesson to everybody. Do not sit here and think that because you believe that you're a professional, and I'm not saying that you're not, that you can separate the lines when you're dealing with a person that you may know as a client. You cannot. So that's the most important lesson, if anything, from my rambling that you can take from this, is do not think that your professional skill sets are so high that you're able to cross those lines and you're able to delineate between friendship and client, because the human instinct is just going to take over and it's just not going to work for either party. So with that being said, on to the next thing, because that was like a very draining experience. I had a service learning project, which I absolutely loved. This year, we went to the Chicago Housing Authority where we worked with the elderly population. And so I was really excited because, like, the people had to write on a postcard, like if they could write to a loved one, past or present, what would they put on a postcard and mail to them? And one guy actually wrote me a love letter. It was so sweet. He's like, "Dear Camille, I love you now. I love you for forever." And it was just like really endearing. And then one lady, she gave me a picture that has like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Obama, and one other individual, I can't remember right now, and she was like, "To Camille from Granny." Like, it was just so adorable, and I was like so happy. I was the only person out of everybody in our service learning that got anything from them. They were giving me such a hard time. Like, the one lady that gave me the picture, we were playing a game where it was like, on a note card, they had to put down what music reminded them of a loved one. And so I read the card, but it wasn't the name of the actual song. It was a verse from the song. And the woman was like, "That's not the name of the song from Marvin Gaye. That's not the name. That's just the song. That's a verse from the song." I said, "Listen, I know, but I have to respect the person that wrote the card, and I have to read it exactly how it's written so that they know that that's their card so that we can play the music for them." And she was like, "Don't be getting ghetto on me." And I was like, ain't nobody getting ghetto on you, because South Side of Chicago, look, they got some flavor. You got to give it right back. So like we was just having a little spice back and forth, and they loved it and I loved it. And so I was like, oh, is this the population that I want to work with? Like that's the best thing about residency, is that you get to work with different populations, and it really helps you to like ponder, where do I really want to start my therapy? Like what demographic, I mean, there's so many demographics that you can serve. Like it's endless, and there's major demographics and micro demographics within those. So just really embrace the process of service learning, and volunteering is so important. So moving forward, so in this class in group therapy, we had to create like what's our passion project for group therapy. And so what I did is my paper on a group design. So we had to design our own group and create about 4 sessions. So I did mine on African American single mothers raising sons, because I feel like it's a very important subject that needs to be addressed, because unfortunately we have a lot of single mothers, especially African American single women, approximately like 82.2%. There's single mothers in the United States, and about 72% of those identify as African American. So that's that's more than 50% of the population of single mothers is made up of African American women. And then you have mostly young men being raised by these mothers without their fathers being involved, or some type of fatherly figure. So what I decided to do was create my counseling group design around a support group for these African American single mothers raising sons, because they need to have an outlet, and they need to know that they are supported. They get so much criticism and demonization through the media, through their peers, through their family members, that having a support group for single mothers, yes, is important, but it's so important for African American women raising sons, because let's face it, African American males are completely targeted. They're the highest in the incarceration, the drug rates, lowest on the education. Like it's just a circle that has got to stop. So I decided to do a support group for these individual women. And so basically the session came down to, you have to figure out what the eligibility, the recruitment, and the screening would be in order to get these women into the group, the purpose and the goals. So the purpose of the group was to have a support system so that these women could bounce ideas off of each other and be able to cultivate their sons in an environment that was non-judgmental. Given the fact that Black men are being shot in the street, and that just the amount of violence that's perpetrated in the African American community from inside and outside is a problem.